right, hello everybody, we're going to get started. Welcome everybody to LA2M. Hello. While everybody's getting settled in, we'll get started. We'd like to thank everyone for being here today. We're so happy to see a great turnout today. I know it. I can always tell when we have good speakers going up there that I know the pre-sales seems to spike, and it has the last couple of months, and I knew it would today for Ross. So we're glad you're all here. You're in for a great session today. I was telling Ross throughout the year of all the questions I get about LA2M, it's always, when's the web guy going to be back? I need help with my website. So we're appreciative that Ross gets his time each year to come and share with us today the state of the web and how you can improve your website. We all need work on our websites. I know I do. And it's one of those things that always gets put on the back burner. But anyways, before we get to that, I want to say again, welcome and thanks for being here today. My name is Jim Musial. I help organize LA2M and get things kicked off each month. We're glad everybody's here. We are, first of all, do we have any first timers here today? You can raise your hand if you're here for the very first time. All right, great, thank you. We're glad you're here. So this pretty much is for you guys here. Just a little format. The rest of you know how LA2M works. We do a little quick introduction, and then I'll turn the microphone over to Ross, and he's going to speak for about 30-35 minutes and share all his information with you that will fill your head and your notebooks, and then you can go home or go back to your office and put everything into plan that he tells us about today. And at that, we'll have some Q&A time at the end, hopefully. So if you got some questions, start writing them down, or even during if Ross is in mind, he may ask a question on the topic right at point. That'd be fine. But we will do some Q&A at the end. And then at the very end, about 1:45, we stop and then we pass the microphone around so that everyone has an opportunity to introduce themselves, tell us who you are, where you work, if you have a quick ask, and we get all the way around the room. And we'll get everybody out of here by 1 o'clock today. You're certainly welcome to stick around and network. Ross, I'm sure he'll stick around for a few minutes if you have some other questions. And so also, if you want lunch, you are able to order lunch off the Conor O'Neill's menu. That's on you, but you're welcome to do that. The food is outstanding here. LA2M is a 501(c) nonprofit organization. We're here to share marketing education with everybody. We've been doing this is our 8th year. Ross is actually one of the co-founders of LA2M, and they got together years ago and just kind of started talking and sharing marketing ideas, and it's grown from there, and it continues to grow each year, and we have great speakers coming in. LA2M is run by volunteers. Roger Rayle up here on video, Carter Sherline on photography, Kathy in the back who checks you in, Stacy is our treasurer. We just have a lot of people who help out, and we appreciate that. So if that's something you'd be interested in, if you'd like to maybe get involved with LA2M from a volunteer standpoint, please see me, and we'd love to have you help out. Let's see. I think that's about it. We do offer sponsorship opportunities through LA2M. I do not have a sponsor for this month, but if you'd be interested, or your company is interested in sponsoring monthly or semi-annual or annual, I'd be happy to talk to you about it, give you the opportunity to get up before each LA2M and tell us a little bit about you and your company, and we would certainly promote you in our emails and all of our posts that we put out there as well. So if that's something that interests you, we'd love to talk to you about it. So we're going to get started now. Our websites are something that are so important to our business, and I think everybody knows that, and a lot of our business is done through the web. And it's so important that we're up to date with what's going on here. So we're very fortunate. Ross Johnson, who is one of the co-founders of LA2M, co-founder of 3.7 Design, as well as several other groups and companies, is here. He's a subject matter expert on the web, and we're really fortunate. So I'm not going to take any more of his time, so if you'll join, put your hands together, and welcome Ross.
Thank you. So I'm hopeful that all of you came out today. Thanks for taking away some of your precious time to come hear me speak. So in return, I'm going to help you learn a little bit about what's going on with the web. I'm going to talk a bit about how you can improve your websites, but specifically about what's changing now and how that impacts what you should be thinking about when it comes to your website and marketing online. But first, I'll just give you a little background of just who I am. So I'm a designer. Out of all the things that I do, as far as running a company, I actually do some development. I identify most with being a designer, which is being able to solve problems, identifying problems and figuring out how do we come up with a solution to that problem. So my dad was an architect, and my mom was a social worker, which I think is kind of a unique blend where I grew up seeing these ingenious ways that my dad would come up with clever little ways to solve very simple problems, whether it's he wanted to find an easier way to put his drink down when he was watching TV, to he wanted to be able to relax outside on a chair but not have to struggle to put the chair in the garage when he's done, so he developed a hook system. And that thought process, I think, is really important when it comes to trying to solve marketing problems, being able to identify what is this issue here and how can I go about trying to figure out a solution. And on the flip side, with my mom, she was a social worker, so she taught me empathy, which I think is another really important aspect of the web and marketing in general, because identifying with the needs of people, what they're looking for, is really ultimately what we're trying to do to try and communicate to them. Which ultimately led me to what I do today, the company 3.7 Designs. Now, I was a solo entrepreneur, a solopreneur, which I think is the term, for a really long time. And one of the biggest problems that I had, or that I was faced with, that I'm fortunate to have solved is, how do I impact more people? Because you can only do so much as yourself. So I'm fortunate now that I've got a great team that helps, that we work on these sort of things together. So my wife, who's a talented designer, now runs the company, Lindsay. We've got a great developer, John, who takes our crazy ideas and brings them to life. And then our project manager, Declan, takes chaos and makes it into something comprehensible so we actually know what to do. So enough about me. I want to start with a little bit of history, which I know is like a gotcha, right? Like, you came here to learn about the web and now I'm going to teach you something. But let's go back in time a little bit. Any Doctor Who fans? I'm actually not a Doctor Who fan, but I just liked this gift. So we're going to look at some really nice websites, some top-class premium websites from the past. So when we see one of these nice websites, why don't we all just go, ah, and just enjoy it, right? I know, participation too, right? I'm a teacher, so I'm sorry I'm bringing all my horrible tricks, the things you probably don't want to do when you're learning during lunch, but Mercedes-Benz. This is what Mercedes-Benz first website looked like. Very nice. McDonald's. Thank you, yeah. It's pretty good, right? They've got the golden arches up there, they've got something about, it took 3 years to sell $100 million hamburgers. I think that's 100 million hamburgers, not $100 million, like a hamburger that costs $100 million. Walmart? That's nice, right? I don't know who this guy is, but apparently it's important. Maybe he's the greeter. I particularly love, this is small, I'm sorry, but this detail cracked me up. So they got updated December 29, 1996. But then they tell you when they're going to update it next. January 6, 1997. Be ready. And then this one, I forget what one this is about. Yeah, anyways. So the web changes, right? Those were top class when they were released in the early 90s. That was, if you got a site like that, or you were even online, you were ahead of the curve. And then things changed. People started to expect more. And we got to the place where we had Flash intros. Does anybody know about these? Let's take a look.
Exactly.
Where'd it go? All right, it's loading. Loading.
Yeah.
See you later.
Yeah, okay, well, you get the point. What actually is there is even worse than the waiting part, so. Yeah, these are really popular, and actually the funny thing about that piece is that's the only Flash intros I could find were the ones you could still buy, these stock Flash intros, so apparently people still buy these, it's painful. And then we got through a whole phase of what was called skeuomorphism. Let's make everything super detailed and super realistic. Because the only way you can possibly understand a website is if it replicated reality. So instead of viewing a website, let's watch it on TV. Or come to my website where you're sitting in my room and I'm hanging out talking to you. everything had to have this sense of depth and like replicate reality. Things were very decorative. I would say this is kind of in the mid-2000, 2006. And then more recently, we've gotten to this more period of where everything had to be flat. Like we're revolted against like all the detail of the realistic sort of appearances. And you got into this place where it's like everything had to be very minimal and flat, and now we're into pastels, and buttons no longer look like buttons, they're just boxes. And that's kind of where we've been at for the past, I don't know, 5 or so years. But some things never change, like this website has pretty much been the same. This is Ling Ling's Used Cars. And this is all actually animated. Like if you haven't seen the site, please go look it up. It's pretty much been the same for the past 15, 20 years. And what boggles my mind is there's articles about this, and this site performs really well. Like, even though it's probably everything like dehumanized lottery, I don't even know what that is, but it performs really well. My point being is that things change quickly. What people expect change quickly, and that means you need to pay attention to what's going on when it comes to your website, because most of the time, the website is the hub of your marketing efforts online. You know, ultimately you're sending people to your website so that they're going to perform some sort of action that helps whatever it is you're doing, whether it's improving your business or helping your nonprofit, something along those lines, or even just spreading your ideas if that's what you're looking for. And there's actually some theory behind this. This is the Kano model. There's an economist who's taking a look at this sort of thing, and what he found is that there's different things that bring people enjoyment, to get them excited. There's what are called delighters, things that are unexpected. Basic expectations, where if those aren't met, you know, then you're upset. Like being actually able to load the page, what I'd say is a basic expectation. When that doesn't happen, you're like, come on. And then there's satisfiers, things that, you know, they keep you satisfied, but they don't really excite you. But the thing is over time, what used to be a delighter becomes a basic expectation. And to illustrate, getting hot water at a hotel is pretty much a basic expectation, and to get it quickly. If you were staying in a hotel and it took you 10 minutes before you got hot water, you'd be really upset. But at one point, that was amazing, because if you're in a tall building, it's really hard to get hot water higher up into the building. It actually has to be pumped there. And so somebody developed recirculation systems, and I apologize, I don't know a ton about this, but basically they continually pump hot water throughout the entire building so that anytime you turn on the tap, you get hot water. So that was amazing at some point. That was like, you know, I can go to a hotel and get hot water right away, that's great. But now if you didn't have that, you'd be very upset. And digitally, when Google Docs came out, this idea of being able to collaborate in real time on documents was really exciting. It was something nobody else had. And that really turned a lot of people on to Google Docs. But now, all the competitors that come out, that's expected. If you have an online document management tool and you can't collaborate together real time, then it seems like why bother? That's the whole point. So all the competitors to Google Docs, like Dropbox Paper, Microsoft Office Online, Zoho Documents, they all have to use that feature, because even though it was amazing at one point, it's a basic expectation. So what does that mean to us? Let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the end of 2016 and the end of 2017, and what that might mean for what you're doing with your website. And I've broken this down into 4 different categories. I know the whole intro section I was kind of talking about what websites look like, but it's not all about fashion, it's not all about style. There's a lot of other things that are important there too. But we will talk about fashion because it's kind of the most tangible part of what we see when it comes to the web. So we'll talk about behavior, strategy, media, and then ultimately fashion. So when I talk about behavior, this is more along the lines of how do people behave online? And how does that impact the sort of things that we're going to do with our websites? The sort of things that we care about. Because this changed, people's expectations change. And you kind of start seeing this snowball at certain points until all of a sudden everybody's behaving differently. And I would say the first major thing to pay attention to is patience. Does anybody have any ideas what that machine is up there? It's a modem, right? How slow were modems? So I'm sure, who here has been online when they used like a dial-up modem? Okay, most of you, right? Like, and how long would it take for a page to load? 10 seconds maybe? 20? If there were images? It took a really long time. And so we used to be really patient with websites, but now that's not the case. We expect things to load really, really fast. In fact, this is so important that search engines like Google that are paying a lot of attention to how positive is the experience that we send of the website that we send people to, we're starting to pay attention to how quick our page is loading. And what we've seen is that there's a direct correlation between how long it takes for the page to load and conversion rate, which is basically when somebody hits your site, a conversion is when they perform some sort of action that you want them to. They convert into a lead, they convert into a customer, something along those lines. You'll see that the longer it takes for a page to load, the more that the conversion rate drops. And you'll see abandonment rate too. So after about 3 seconds, abandonment rate skyrockets. People just will leave. They don't want to wait longer than 3 seconds. 3 seconds. Like, that's how long it takes to cook a Pop-Tart in a microwave. And people are unwilling to wait that long. So you can see here, like, the peak was somewhere around, if you can keep it under 3 seconds, they were doing pretty good in this chart, and then from there, it just drops from there. And Amazon did some research, and they found that an additional 1 second load time on their page would cost them $1.6 billion. 1 second, $1.6 billion. So this is so critical that what a lot of developers have started doing is front-loading the development, meaning they will inject all the styling rules into the top of the page as opposed to having it in a separate file, which is typically how you do that. So that everything that would appear above the fold, everything that would appear before you have to scroll, shows up quicker. So they'll actually extract a portion of the code and put it in the page itself rather than sitting someplace else like you normally would, which is a lot of extra effort just so that that appears instantly. So performance has never been more important, and it's only going to get more important because we're going to get less and less patient. The next thing as far as behavior, mobile. Who here has a cell phone? Who here is their cell phone the first thing they check in the morning? Who here looks at their cell phone in the bathroom? Some of you are liars. Mobile is becoming more and more ubiquitous. So there's this author, Luke Robalski, who published this book, Mobile First, in 2011. And his whole argument was that the way that people typically design websites is they look at how does it look on a desktop, okay, now how does it look on a tablet, now how does it look like on a phone, now how does it look like on an Apple Watch. He released this in 2011, so it's 2017, it's a long time ago. And this was my first response to that. I didn't really take it seriously. I thought, like, here's a guy who's trying to make a name for himself by claiming something radical. But 2011 was a long time ago, and here we go at 2017, and I'm kind of more along the lines of this. Yeah, okay. Maybe we should start thinking more about mobile. Because if you look at all of all of web traffic and where it's coming from, mobile is a significant leader. 51% of all web traffic is mobile. So that eclipses desktop by a significant amount. We've got 7%, which is like more like web-enabled devices, like coffee makers and stuff like that. Not so much like browsers, that sort of thing. So that's really significant. So what we used to do when we're designing, yes.
Are tablets included in mobile or desktop?
Desktop. Yeah. So it used to be, when we're designing responsive websites, which is pretty much the standard of designing like a mobile-friendly site, because it used to be that you would design, a mobile site which would be completely separate, and then a desktop site that would be completely separate. What they found is that there's no reason to change the two because people's intent, you want the same content on a mobile device that you would on a desktop. And so rather than having a slimmed down mobile version, which just is frustrating if you can't find anything, you should develop one site that will conform to all of them. So they developed this concept of responsive design, which is basically one design that will expand and contract based on the size of the device. So a desktop will have 4 columns, it'll be really wide, you'll have these big, beautiful photography. When it comes down to your phone, all that collapses into a single column and you just scroll a little more. So So what we used to do is say, okay, we're going to design a mock-up for the home page on a desktop, and then we're going to think about what is it going to look like on a laptop, and then what is it going to look like on a tablet, and then what is it going to look like on a phone. And that was the approach we took, because most of the traffic was desktop, and then it was kind of less important from there. But really what we need to do now is the opposite. If mobile is the primary way that people are getting to content, we need to start to think about the phone first. How are we going to create a very great mobile experience? And then how can we extend that and enhance and build on top of it for the other devices? So rather than creating this very full-featured concept that degrades as you get down from the devices, we think about how do we start with the phone and build on top of it. It's a different mindset. The next thing to keep in mind, something that's changed a long time ago, but it's really like it's time to get over this. People scroll. As a designer, this is a pet peeve I've had to deal with for a long time, where there's this notion that you have to cram all the content into the portion of the screen that you see right when the page loads. So this is a term, the fold, was borrowed from newspapers a long time ago, where the information you saw above the fold in the newspaper was above the fold and most important, because when the newspaper was sitting on a place where you might buy it, that was a huge determining factor whether you pick up the newspaper and actually buy it or not. And there was a point where people were fairly scroll adverse years ago. But now what we found is that's not the case. In fact, 66% of attention on websites is now below the fold. This is not a universal rule. There are exceptions, of course, depending on your target market, but in general, it's okay to let go of this idea that we need to cram everything above the fold. Not that what you see first isn't important, but not everything has to be there. So let's talk a little bit about strategy, which is the way that we approach designing, building, and working on our websites. I love this quote. It's from Henry Ford. He basically says, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. I think that's a nice reminder to think about going above and beyond what people are telling you at times. So let's first start talking about how we think about designing and building websites. So a lot of firms, what we've done for a long time, including my own, is spending a lot of time and effort at the very beginning into design discovery, which is basically just trying to learn enough about the problem, the situation, and the users that we can make informed decisions along the way. So this might include having focus groups, where we actually try and get people in a room and talk to them about, what are your pain points? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? Maybe you do surveys. Maybe you do individual, phone calls and conversations. You can even do field work where you spend time following them around and seeing, what's it like to actually be in their situation and what do they struggle with, trying to get more in their head. And eventually you would develop something like a persona, which is a fictional representation of a group of people who would, in theory, visit your site. So it might be like, alumni are visiting the MSU site, and we've got a persona for them, and it describes what they think about and what they're looking for and what's their situation, so that when you later decide, you get to a point where you're making design decisions, you can say, well, what would Tim think about this versus what would I think about this? And there's value in that. And then maybe you spend time putting together wireframes, which are kind of like a blueprint, just trying to figure out what the important components, where should things go. Eventually you might do a mock-up. And these are all things that are valuable, but there's some drawbacks there. It takes a lot of time and effort to put these pieces together. You could spend hundreds of hours just doing this work. And at the end, you know what that all is? It's a guess. It's your best guess, albeit an informed guess, at what's going to be most effective. Because there's a lot of flaws in these sort of things. Like, do people always answer honestly when you ask them a question? No. They want to project their best version of themselves. They might not answer honestly. They might not say that they're impatient or they get frustrated with the computer. Certainly with focus groups, can there be one person who overpowers everybody else? Can the designer who's working on it misinterpret things? Absolutely. So while these things are good, and you shouldn't completely forget about design discovery and do things randomly, putting that much effort into figuring out everything beforehand is less effective. So instead, we're moving to a place where we're thinking about sprints. Rather than spending a whole lot of time and a whole lot of effort in designing a website and launching it and saying, cool, we don't need to touch it for 4 years, and then we'll think about redesigning it again. It's more about getting something out there quicker so we can see how it performs and revise long term. Because the most valuable data and insights you get is from when people actually start using it. Because that's when you actually see is it working or not. There's no more guesswork there. It does or it doesn't. Or it performs at a certain level, we want it to perform better. So, we're switching to a place where you do basic research, you find enough to make some informed. You do a loose mock-up so you can define what the tone should be, what is the visual communication that we're trying to create. You build it, you refine it, you ship it, and then you test. You see how is this working, and then you circle back, do another quick mock-up, and continue through that process. So in 2010, if you look at the effectiveness of your website, it probably looks something like this, where you launch a new version and it's doing great, and then time passes and things change and it's not doing so great, and then eventually you're like, God, this site sucks, why do we even like it? In the first place, let's redesign it, and you do a redesign, the effectiveness would shoot up, and the same thing would happen over time. It degrades, user behavior changes, people's expectations changes, and then you do a redesign, it shoots up, and so on and so forth. But most of the time, your website sits in this period of like decay, actually doing worse. So now, instead, what makes more sense is very short sprints where you're continually improving it over time. So every couple weeks, it gets a little better instead of just sitting there getting worse and worse over time. Because we have all this information, there are so many amazing tools out there that tell you how effective and how everything is working, how well everything is performing on your website. So the 2006 approach to doing any digital effort online was kind of like, we're going to do some effort, and something happens, and maybe we get profit, but there's this kind of like cloud in between where we don't really know how effective anything is, how effective one campaign is, or one page is, or an entire site. So instead, what we can do is we have our marketing efforts, which leads to some sort of funnel where we can add people to a newsletter, we can get them into a CRM. If we have an inbound campaign, we can get them into that. We can track what's happening in between there. Where did they go from? What percentage of them end up in the funnel? And then that gives you more ability to track their behavior on their site. A lot of these tools will actually let you see once somebody is in your funnel, in your inbound system, you can see exactly what they do on the site and see what really matters to these people. Are we prioritizing the right things? Is everybody going to case studies and they completely don't care about testimonials? You might change the design based on that. And then you can measure outcomes and refine it. So this concept is considered closed loop marketing. We're actually closing the loop on the whole thing, and you have a very detailed understanding of what's working, what's not. So this whole adage of only 50% of my marketing dollars work, I just don't know which 50%, is gone. Because you can track and see exactly how much does it cost for me to get a soft lead. I'm spending $50 for every time somebody fills out my contact form. Well, if you've got a $50,000 average project, and you know that 10% of those people close, well, that works pretty well. You might want to put more money into that. You can also see, if you're doing e-commerce, exactly which channels are generating the most profitable sales. So all this information, there's a lot of really good detail out there. If you're at a point where you don't know how effective your website is, this is something to look into because the information is there. There are ways to see exactly how things are working and what might need to be improved. So here's some just quick screenshots about some of the different tools out there. So HubSpot lets you create whole funnels of customer lifecycle or lead lifecycle to try and get people in the very top where you just have their information, and then how do you qualify them as they come closer and closer to becoming a customer. This is another tool, it's Act On, which is another inbound tool and tracking service where once you get somebody as a contact through your website, you can actually see exactly what they do on the site, which gives you more information to decide whether you should reach out to them, or if nothing else, you can see what's important to them and change the design of your site based on that. And if you're doing any sort of digital marketing or advertising, you should be looking at how much is it costing you to to get to that point what you want, whether it's a lead or a sale. So like AdWords, a lot of the tools have it built right in where they'll actually allow you to track when somebody converts into a sale or a lead and see how much you're spending for that particular set of leads come through. All right, now let's talk about media. So this, I'm saying media in terms of the type of content that goes on your site, or the type of information you put out there. And I'm going to start by saying content nowadays is more important than ever. So like this was the saying, content is king for a really long time, but now it really, really is king. So content marketing is this whole approach that's kind of evolved. It's always been there, but it's getting more and more important. And Neil Patel has a really good quote about it. He's a marketer online. If you're not familiar with him, he's got a couple good blogs that are worth following. And he basically says it's a long-term strategy based on building a strong relationship with your customers by giving them valuable content that's highly relevant to them on a consistent basis. And I like to distill that into basically saying you're creating content that helps your audience become more educated, because we're a lot more self-sufficient these days at making buying decisions than we used to be. It used to be that you would go to the salesperson to become informed about what you're going to buy. But these days, a lot of people don't trust salespeople. They're there to get you to part with as much money as possible. So we tend to do more of the research on our own, try and learn as much as possible. And even though what we do probably seems simple to us, it's really complicated to everybody else. So it's really a matter of creating valuable resources and tools because people are out there searching for it before or to help inform their buying decision. And because of it, when they find out and they learn something from you, they're going to be much more likely to purchase from you because you've already helped them out, so there's reciprocity there. But you're also proving you're an expert, and you know what you're doing, you know how to help them. So this could be, very simple. It's not complicated. You could create guides on how to do things. It could be checklists, white papers, webinars, online courses, tools, tutorials, question and answers. There's a lot of things, a lot of different techniques that you can use to create valuable content, but it's just a matter of figuring out what questions do people have, what don't people know about that they wish they knew about, and how do I create content to help them? I think a very simple example is, a few years ago, my wife and I went camping, and I hadn't been camping probably ever in my life, to be honest. And I had no idea, what do you need? If it was just up to me, I would end up on a beach and die, because I would freeze to death and have no food. But Dick's Sporting Goods had a checklist. Never been camping? Buy these things. And I printed it out, went to the store and bought all of it. And we've never been since, which is kind of funny. I think about it. So it works, right? Ultimately, people love to buy. Who doesn't love to buy stuff? Sorry, but that's kind of who we are, right? But we hate to be sold, and content marketing is a really great way of doing that. So some other statistics to kind of prove this: 200 million people use ad blockers, so you can't depend on advertising to get you traffic and attention, but people are looking for content, and they like to share really great content. So it's a great way to get past those ad blockers. 61% of buying decisions are influenced by custom content, so over half. And content marketing results in about 7.8 times more site traffic than outbound, which is kind of more paid traffic. The other thing I want to talk about is video content. Video content is on the rise. So I'm kind of saying video is the new text. Everything used to be text-based, and video has been around for a long time, but more and more people are looking to consume video content. YouTube is the second largest search engine. There are more searches on YouTube than there is Bing and Yahoo. Social generates 1,200 more shares. Social video, generates 12,000% more shares in text than images combined. So it gets shared a lot more often. 80% of users recall a video from 30 days ago. 80%, 30 days. So somebody can watch your video. In a month from now, they'll remember it. Where most people don't remember an ad they saw this morning. Does anybody remember any of the ads they saw on websites this morning? Anybody? No? Yeah, see? You remember a video. 1/3 of all online activity is watching video. And 75% of executives watch work-related videos on business websites at least once per week. So it's not just about B2C, business to consumer. It's also business to business. And 90% of users say product videos inform their decision process. So video is really powerful and really important. Now it's much harder to create good video content, especially if you want something really polished. but it's worth the investment. And it doesn't always have to be really polished. You know, there's some value in just, you know, documenting the process in a more organic way. You know, you might be in a situation where you don't have to make it look sexy. It's just more interesting to people when they see what's going on behind the scenes. But if you do want help putting together video content, I know Roger runs a video users interest group that I've heard really good things about. So you should check that out.
Tonight.
It's tonight, so there you go, you get started. Now, I want to talk a little bit at the end about fashion, just because even though, like, as a designer, like, I want to tell you that design is timeless, and you shouldn't always be chasing trends, and classic design lives forever, and all these things, but in reality, you know, we all pay attention to it. We all notice if all of a sudden a website looks like it was designed a few years ago. Because these things change, and you know, there is an element of you need to stay on top of things. So what we're seeing now, I think we're just at the tail end of what I would call like super minimalism, where we have to like get rid of all style because we overdid it for a while. Like we had many things going on with too many shadows and colors and too many realistic places. So, you know, like last year I would see a lot of sites like this, like here's a designer and here's a site. I think it's beautiful. I don't know about everybody else, but like it's so minimal and clean. Or you might see something like this. This is like flat design or metro design, if you want to give it labels. So yeah, still very simple. But even if you look at some of the more complex ones, Twitter, for example, everything is flat. You know, we don't have any depth or any shading. Even the buttons are just, you know, flat text and flat boxes. And the most detail they put in is there's like a ghosted part of a bird up there. But everything else is very minimal. Let's just try and keep it very functional or form. But it's interesting, you know, fashion trends tend to repeat themselves, right? Like I don't know what we're going through now. Is it 80s or 90s? It's like, as far as like clothing fashion, I think we're getting close to 90s again.
Yeah.
80s? Is it 80s? Okay, cool, 80s. I like the 80s. That's when I was born. But this happens on the web too. Like the web is just getting to a point, like it's mature enough where like fashions are starting to repeat themselves, which for me is like kind of cool. Because I've, you know, been doing it for a little bit. So what I've seen recently is the sense of visual depth has returned. So before, you know, we've recreated these very realistic sort of circumstances where like if you had a calendar on your site, it had to look like it was in a book. Those sets of depth, you know, we overdid it, but we're getting to a point where we're kind of adding these elements back in. So there's a little bit of depth being put into designs, and there's some value to that. So here's an example. You can see this is mostly flat. You can see some things that have some shadows. It breaks outside of the container. And there's some value to this. Without overdoing it, you can draw more attention to certain things by giving it a shadow, giving it a sense that it's closer to you. You can create what's called affordance. And affordance is more of an industrial design term, but it's the concept that you can tell what something does just by looking at it. Like I wouldn't have to tell you what a bowl does. If you've never seen a bowl before, you could see a bowl and be like, cool, I can put stuff in it. That's the idea of affordance. So by giving buttons the element of depth, it lets you know that they're clickable, they're interactable. Because that's something that mirrors our real life attitude, or our real life capabilities. Here's another example, you know, again very simple, generally flat, but there's just that one element that has some depth to it. Here's another one, same thing, the only thing that has depth is the browser shadow, which draws attention. We're also seeing some subtle gradients come back. So gradients is basically when you've got one color that fades into another, so it might get lighter with the same color, or you might fade two colors before. And these were really popular for a really long time. And what I love about this is it's like very like 80s style gradients, so there's like very bright dual tone gradients. So here's Stripe, you can see they've used a lot of gradients all over the place. That's becoming popular again. Asana, which is a project management tool, they have a lot of like really bright 80s style colors. We're also seeing asymmetry. So websites used to be very like boxy and everything is like very perfect in their specific position, and apparently designers got bored of that because they're doing stuff like this, where everything's kind of like sits on top of each other. This is a wine company. And so this is becoming cool, where things don't necessarily have to be all aligned and stuck together. And then the last thing I want to talk about is long-form storytelling. So this kind of ties into user behavior. But what people are doing now, instead of having lots of small little bits of content on individual pages, they're creating longer pages where they can tell a narrative that as you scroll, as you consume the content, it tells a story rather than having people make a decision, do they want to click to the next thing or not. So here's an example of an eyewear shop. That's a lot of content on one page. Here's a coffee shop. So rather than having this one short block of content, you're reading through a lot of content. You're kind of being introduced. You're being told a story about what it's like to have this content, or have this coffee, or go to the store. I'm not actually sure exactly what it is. But there's a lot of benefits there because we actually tend to be click adverse, which is interesting. There's a lot of things that happen subconsciously when you're trying to decide, do I want to click on this? Because when you do click on it, you might regret doing it. Oh, I came to the wrong page. I made a mistake. I need to go back. You also have to reorient yourself. The page loads and you're trying to figure out, okay, wait, where am I on the site? Is this, is this where I want to be? And there's that darn 2 to 3 seconds it takes to go from page to page. So there's a lot of commitment involved in a click. And having a longer page, it's really easy to scroll. And because we're all on mobile devices where you can't fit everything into one screen, we're used to scrolling. So long form tends to perform a lot better. Here's an example of Moz.com, which is a SEO subscription tool service. And they found that their original page, which you can see is tiny, and they switched to this huge page, significantly longer, resulted in 52% increase in sales, over $1 million. Design Boost, their homepage used to be really short, succinct. They made it much bigger, put in a lot more information, and what they found is that 13% increase in signups and 25% more increase in clicks. So it tends to work a lot better. Again, not every situation, but this is the way things would tend to be going. So I'll just recap. Actually, you can just read these things. Here are the things that I talked about, and we'll open up the questions so it doesn't take quite as long. Thank you.
So we only have one microphone. I'm going to leave it with Ross. I know that doesn't help our video feed, but we have time for just 1 or 2 questions. It's Drew.
It's really more of, are you going to be sharing this presentation with us?
Like the slides?
Like that I don't have to be scribbling everything?
Oh, yeah, we'll post it on the LA2M website, yeah.
I mean, I did take in a lot of it.
Right. Sure, yeah, definitely, we'll post the slides.
But I'll ask you the other part of it.
Sure.
Is on websites, what I've noticed too is interactivity. So you say like content's really king. The idea that there's a bit of emotion that goes on too. So buttons are flat, but at the same time, if I scroll over it, suddenly something happens to it. That's happening a lot too. And do you think that that has something to do with the way social media has more page speeds, the way you start to build into a website and you're scrolling down because you're used to doing that from your Twitter feed or your Instagram or whatever?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think the question was, if I paraphrase for the video, you're seeing a lot more motion and interactivity in design, and where might that be coming from? So I think that we are seeing a lot more of these kind of animations and subtle things that happen when you hover over things, or as you scroll down, things might appear in design. I think it happens for a few different reasons. One, motion is a powerful way to draw attention to things. We're hardwired to pay attention to motion because at one point, motion could be a threat. So when we see motion, it's kind of instinctive to see and look at it. So there is some value in trying to add some motion to things. It also might make things feel more alive. So last year, maybe it was the year before, there was a lot of talk and discussion about how can we take the elements of animation that companies like Disney and Pixar have really mastered and apply them to the web. And I think this leads to the second thing that happened is sometimes designers abuse these things because it looks and feels cool. It's impressive, like, look at what I did, there's stuff flying everywhere. So it's something you have to do very subtly in order for it to be effective. And it can be effective, but it has to be done carefully. It needs to be subtle, and it needs to be done for the right reason. Are you trying to make something feel more interactive, more alive, or draw more attention to it? Then great, as long as it's not distracting. But it's really easy to go overboard.
One more question right here, Kara.
Yeah, so I do some work in Google AdWords and helping people with landing pages and things, and so when, so if the trend is to have a longer homepage with more information on it, how do you accommodate then? I'm hearing discussions from Google that you need to have really specific landing pages. So how do you accommodate those two things happening at the same time?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it's a matter of what is the context. So in general, it's pretty rare that you would do an ad campaign, send people to the homepage, because you're more informed when you're doing the ad. You have a good idea of what they clicked on, so what they're interested in. In terms of the landing page that they arrive at, it really depends on how close are they to knowing what they want. So if they're if they're at a point where I'm pretty sure I know what I want, you don't need a tall landing page or a long landing page. That's actually going to perform worse. But if they're in more of a situation where they're still researching and trying to learn and that sort of thing, that's when those longer form landing pages tend to work better.
Can you join me in thanking Ross for all the information? It's just incredible the amount of information that we see there, and I love the fact that old is new, because I'm an 80s person, and I'm really excited about the 80s. So that was, in addition to the wonderful talk that we've had, and to answer Drew's question earlier, this slide presentation will be on the LA2M website within a day or two. Roger usually has it up, so look forward to that. If you need to watch this again, it is a good topic, as well as Ross's previous talks are on there as well. We archive all of our presentations and sessions each month onto our website, so it's a great resource to look back on. So what we're going to do now is real quickly, while you take care of your bill with the Conor staff, we're going to pass the microphone around the room. If you could just ask you to stand up, tell us your name, your company, and if you have a real quick ask, and then pass it to the person next to you, and we'll get all the way around the room in less than 15 minutes. Thank you. We'll start with John.
I'm John Goss, Marketing Manager for K Engineering. We're part of the Marsh Bellfram group of companies in Newell, West Virginia.
I'm Alicia Glazier. I'm a Client Success Manager at Pure Visibility. We do digital marketing.
I'm Katie Gerwick. I'm an SEO content writer at Pure Visibility.
My name is Tarun Gahani. I'm the SEO lead at Pure Visibility.
My name is Kara Groupie. I work in digital strategy, so kind of some elements of that, of what you guys do, and at Libby Creative, and I also do some freelance work.
My name is Stephanie Belcher. I represent Taxco Solutions, a CPA firm in Plymouth, and we help local businesses manage their finances, all accounting, bookkeeping, payroll, and I have, if you're interested, a checklist for small business deductions that you might not have thought of.
My name is Jim Wolperbeck, and I'm with Result Management Group.
Hello, Jessica Scott with Renaissance Venture Capital Fund, right down the street here.
My name is Joseph Cummings. I'm a graphic designer for Greenbelt Marketing.
My name is Todd Gertis. I'm with Rayle Marketing. We're a full-service digital marketing agency doing everything from websites to print to local SEO to vehicle wraps to clothing. So any marketing needs we can help. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Janet Max. I have my own company. I'm a writer and editor. I do content marketing, copy editing, ghostwriting. Has become a real specialty for me lately. And I'd like to say also, I discovered Tax Code because of LA2M, and I love them and highly recommend.
Thank you very much. We love you too.
Hello, Bob O'Brien. I'm the co-founder and president of Display Supply Chain Consultants. We do market reports and consulting in the flat panel display industry.
Hi, I'm Stacy from Dollarville, your local digital print shop. We print things fast and cost effective. John, I'm working on your quote. I'll have to after LA2M.
Hello, I'm Sean Galante from LA2M.
Hi, I'm George Permiso from Rain Stream Creative. Through video, I enable my clients to communicate their marketing message in a powerful and authentic way.
Slim that talk
really
down.
Longer than that. I couldn't take a minute.
And while you're doing one video, he's thinking of the next 4. It was a great strapline. I don't know why you lost that. But my name's Gavin, and I'm with Shop Window, and we help enable other companies with more one-to-one personalization, more automated with their intended audience.
I'm Juan Montalegre, and I'm the Director of Technical Operations at Apex Dental Milling, and we create crowns and bridges for the dental industry.
Hi, my name is Nicole Armstrong, and I'm a designer and work with the marketing team at Apex Dental Milling.
Hi, I'm Dennis Huffman. I'm a consultant specializing in advertising, branding, communications, but I've been doing a lot lately with the Autism Alliance of Michigan and with seniors. Thinking about re-entering the corporate world, so if anybody wants to make the offer I simply can't refuse, I'm all over.
Hi everyone, I'm Kendra Kerr with Keller Williams Realty, and I do have an ask. I'm looking for houses to sell, so if you've got one, I'd love to sell them because there's a huge demand.
I will, sir. No. I'm Tom Bullerton with Pioneer Valley Financial, and I help people finance the homes that they buy or refinance or investment properties.
Hello, my name is Nina, and I'm a language teacher. Unlike many of you in a different profession, I do online language learning videos. LearnLanguagesWithNina.com.
Hello, my name is John Wright. I am the Senior Web Developer at 3.7 Designs.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Johnson. I'm said wife that Ross went camping with, and I'm also graphic designer and front-end developer at 3.7 Design.
Hi, I'm Gary Wall. I'm a freelance direct response copywriter, B2B primarily.
Amy Brambo, a director of Orange Egg Advertising.
I'm Maggie Cook. I am the director of business development with Endemic Marketing.
Hi, I'm Becky Ashcraft with the Ann Arbor Area Transportation Authority and graphic designer.
Hi, I'm Mary Stashak. I'm manager of community relations at Thrive, and I feel like our website has gone through every version.
Susan Harris from Ann Arbor.
I'm Roger Rayle. I'm a venture catalyst. I help with a lot of networking groups in the entrepreneurial community. And as Ross said, I run Ann Arbor Video Interest Group. So our March meeting is tonight. It's at a different location, so go to A2VIG.org if you'd like to attend. You can RSVP and find out where it is. All the details of the event. What? It's not very far from here, right? It's going to be downtown.
Now, as a runner, I just like to be first, but in these things, I'd like to be last. No, you're next. Some of you know me, I'm Elmo, by the way, and some of you know me as a t-shirt printer, and some of you know me as an exercise instructor. And last time I was here, I was telling you I got my ping pong club going, and it's going to be in about a week. But some of you don't know that I'm a very proud father of a 46, soon-to-be 47-year-old daughter who is just a talented video editor. And she has a YouTube channel, thescene82.com. It's about entertainment and arts in Ann Arbor. It's a fun site to look at, and it has pictures of my grandsons in there too. Please do me the favor, thescene82.com. Okay, thanks.
I'm Carter Sherline from Print Studios, and I'm a commercial editorial and portrait photographer, videographer, drone pilot. If you're a runner, I'm sure you've seen me, my big lens in my face. Golf tournaments. If you're at the Michigan Golf Show on Saturday, I'll be doing interviews. Come stop by the Great Lakes Sports Publications booth, alright? Or if you're in Corktown for the Corktown races and parade, I'll be there as well.
All right, thanks everyone. My name is Jim Musial again. I help organize and run the LA2M events, and we look forward to next month's meeting is April 12th. I don't have a speaker because the speaker just had to change on me, so I'm trying to rejuggle some speakers, so I will have that line up and I will put that out in the email message to everybody. Couple quick housekeeping things. First of all, thank you again to Roger Rayle for putting the video together. The talk will be up on our website, usually the same day, but if not, within the next day or two. Carter, thank you for the photography. That'll be up on our Facebook, on the LA2M Facebook page, sometime between now and the next meeting, so we appreciate Carter putting there. All the volunteers that help us make this, this meeting happen each month, we appreciate it, and especially a thank you to all of you for being here today. So if we could thank Ross again, and appreciate it for being here. Two last things. One, Texco was a sponsor last year, and we appreciate that, and as you can see, business is generated because of that, and that's what's important about why we do this, and we do look for sponsorship. Another one of our former sponsors, Bud Gibson in the Center for Digital Engagement at Eastern. He's a huge supporter of LA2M. He just asked me a favor, and I said because it was from him, I would certainly do it. Just an announcement, he couldn't be here today, but the Center for Digital Engagement has a breakfast series each month. Next month is the new face of branding with Skidmore, Duo, and marketing communication, PWB marketing communications. It'll be a great panel discussion. It's on Friday, April 7th. You can just look up Eastern Michigan's digital engagement and you'll find the event. It's the Face of Branding, April 7th. It's in the morning. It's a breakfast series. It's a really great series. So Bud asked me if I would pass that information on, and I said I would. So again, we got through pretty quickly. I appreciate it. I'm sure Ross will stick around for a few minutes if you'd like to come up and ask a few questions. Feel free to network. That's why we're here as well. Let's help each other do business. So great for everyone to be here. I appreciate it. Look forward to seeing everyone again soon. Thank you.
Christina. Okay. Thank you.